I'm not strong enough to completely unsubscribe from all that. And it is useful to me because I need to pay attention to the information. But Facebook, I've almost completely given up on. I do post pictures of my dogs and my chickens, but beyond that, I don't use it much. But is that a reasonable analogy? We know we should give it up, but we can't.
I'm going to push back a little bit, actually, because oftentimes this gets classed as an addiction problem. And in fact, in Frances Haugen, when she came forward, she's the Facebook whistleblower, people remember, and she said that in Facebook's own research, they know that parents give their kids bad advice, like just put the phone down, just don't use it, just use it for less, just don't use it after 10 p.m. What this misses in the picture is that Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever have colonized the basis of social participation in society. It's not an individual choice for me to not use it. If I'm a small, medium-sized business, do I have another place I can go to micro-target my ads to get the COVID economy rebooted after COVID? Right? I don't have another place to go.
You don't have a choice.
Right. If I'm a kid and all 12 of my closest friends are on Instagram, they're not on some other thing. They're on Instagram. So it's not about whether I'm scrolling. I have no choice. If I'm a politician and all of my competitors are advertising on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, do I have a choice about whether I try to match them in the arms race? And so just like to your point about the climate change thing and the oil companies, I'd say the analogy is closer to not just that it's just closest in the sense that to participate in society, for me to get on that plane to speak at the South by Southwest conference last week, I had to use the fossil hydrocarbon economy to get myself there.
They're exactly linked. We have downward causation caused by the financial markets that we are outsourcing our decisions to the market, to the financial system, and we're part of this culture. We can't live outside of it yet until there are options or a change. And it seems like that is another parallel with the social media infrastructure.
Yep. Well, so we have been on one phase of the energy infrastructure that, you can say that hydrocarbons were a great way of bootloading our society, hopefully into a different energy paradigm that would be more friendly to the environment. The attention economy based on advertising generated a bunch of wealth based on extracting human attention, treating us as the product, not the customer. And it got us to an era of prosperity, but now we need to switch to a new paradigm, just like we have to do with energy. And so I think they're very similar. In fact, of possible ways to talk about this issue, I've purposely tried to talk about it this way because I think it does double work at seeing the connection between economics, climate, and technology and the social climate. And just to say one last thing about the Paleolithic emotions, and that I'm a magician by trade as a background and as a kid.
I do know you're a magician.
Yeah.
I figured that out last week.
Yeah. Well, so, in seeing how these products are working, one of the things you have to realize is that they're designed with an asymmetry of knowledge. Just like a magician knows something about your mind and how you're going to make meaning of a situation, and they know they can manipulate that meaning making that you're doing. Technologists also have an asymmetry of information. They know something about what tends to be sticky for people that they don't know about themselves. So like if I walk into Las Vegas in a casino, one of the things they figured out is if I remove the clock from the casino, people stay a lot longer because I'm essentially removing the reasons that as your mind is scanning around using its perceptual apparatus, it doesn't see clocks anywhere. You kind of forget, time just passes more in flow. And it turned out, someone actually pointed this out to me. I didn't realize it until a week ago. TikTok, if you open the app on an iPhone or an Android that doesn't have the notch with the uneven top, TikTok actually removes the clock as you're watching videos because they don't want you thinking about what time it is, right? And so these are the magician-like tricks on the human mind. And my co-founder, Asa Raskin from the Center for Humane Technology, he actually invented the infinite scroll, which is that instead of hitting next for a video or, clicking a button, that what if you just scroll and it just kept loading them at the bottom over and over and over again. And he invented that feature and he deeply regrets it. He estimates that it wastes several million lives per day in human time. And it's because they're removing the stopping cue, which is that cue that your mind needs in a conversation. Like if I stop talking right now and there's a space, we'll know that we can kind of switch turns. But if I keep talking and you're trying to jump in, then you won't be able to, right? So I'm doing the infinite scroll right now as I'm not letting you speak.
Well, in this particular case, I would probably eventually just butt in and speak.
Which is sometimes what our brains do when they catch up to realizing that we've been spending too long.
Right. Well, exactly. So a little bit on the magic, just to let you know, you and I were together a couple weeks ago. I can't remember exactly when it was 2 weeks ago. And you did this magic trick on me where you had this quarter in my hand and you said a story and my hand was closed and then the quarter was bent in half. And it wasn't before, and it was a real quarter, and I still have it. It's in the other room on my shelf. And I purposely don't believe that was actually magic. I purposely did not look on the internet to see an explanation for that, because in the doing of that, I would have lost some of the specialness of you cracking up at watching my reaction and me wondering how the hell did he do that?
There's a key thing there, right? Which is that the magician, when they use the asymmetry of knowledge, that they know something about your mind that you don't know about themselves, they're not using that to take all your money or to manipulate your psychology and make you anorexic or to make you vote for a different candidate or to ruin a democracy that you're a part of. They use the asymmetry of information to create a magical experience, to create entertainment. In a way, they have a fiduciary obligation to you to be entertaining you. They're operating with that asymmetry of information to help or to entertain. But contrast to that, technology companies have way more knowledge about the vulnerabilities of your mind, way more privileged information. They also know a lot more how the technology works, but they're not using it to the best benefit of your children or to the democracy to function better.
So to use an obscure Dungeons and Dragons metaphor, the tech companies are lawful evil and magicians are chaotic good.
I actually haven't played that much Dungeons and Dragons, so you'd be educating me.
But my point is you can use magic in the broader sense to change people's perception of their reality. You do it all the time with your public talks, and you use word combinations for our prehistoric brain that change how people think and perhaps behave. But you're not doing that to generate clicks or money. You're doing that to change people's hearts and minds. So magic, in the sense of changing people's perception of reality, can be a real thing and a good thing. Yes?
Yeah. Well, I think there's this other trend that, if you think about a timeline of any intelligent species, if it gets to a sufficient level of intelligence, it starts to use its intelligence to understand itself. A lion doesn't have a capacity to point its own intelligence capacities to figure out how do lion brains work and then become self-aware of, man, why do I like gazelles? And why do I like gazelles that look like that and not this? They can't interrogate their own mind. What's unique about humans in our intelligence is that we can actually build tools and build instruments and then actually become self-aware. Well, first, we don't need tools. We can actually just do like what the Buddhists did, where we just sit with our minds and we can study how we really work. We can notice that we have something called loss aversion, that gaining $100 doesn't feel as good as not losing $100 feels bad. And that's for an evolutionary reason, but we can discover facts like that about the human mind. And that's what magicians have done, right? They've discovered these ancient facts about how minds make meaning and biases that we have. And you can think of a timeline that, from Edward Bernays and Sigmund Freud discovering some basic things about human minds to developing marketing and focus groups to then the magicians coming along and figuring out how magic works, and then figuring out Frank Luntz and Drew Weston and people like this who know how language can shape thoughts and minds. Then you can figure out the pickup artist community and then cults. And then you can think about this increasing trajectory of self-knowledge about the predictability of human, social, animals' behavior if you control the environment and the situation. And that is like this sort of body of knowledge, which is how to turn the creativity and free will of human beings into predictable dead slabs of human behavior, because there's an asymmetry where you can cause things to happen.
This is why I lost sleep after I met you, because I realized that me just college professor reality 101 trying to do a wide boundary, comprehensive library treatment of the human predicament on energy, human behavior, climate, biodiversity, money, economic growth, the future, isn't what you just described. It's relevant, but it's boring and dry and not going to be able to capture people with language, et cetera. So I really struggle with should I just discard all the science other than what it informs in my head and use PR and tricks to change people's behavior? And that's not who I am. So I'm doing these educational videos and using some art and music and such. But it's really depressing to me that unless we change how people get information and have a discourse together in society, that these larger issues aren't going to be solved. Right?
Well, I think that we can make some distinctions that, this knowledge about how human minds work doesn't mean we can inform the people who are communicating the most important things to the world and then wrap around it this efficacy program, this to communicate even more powerfully things that people need to know. But of course, this ability to persuade minds, if you think about that's what it is, it's this ability to persuade minds. That's what's going up on a curve. And you can use that for good and for bad.